Charmaine Jones thought the hardest part of prison was missing her 2 kids, birthdays, bedtime stories, Sunday dinners. But nothing prepared her for the crushing weight of what unfolded inside these walls. In Alabama prisons, cells are packed far beyond capacity, with men sleeping shoulder to shoulder, lights glaring day and night, and staff so stretched thin that violence and neglect are the norm. Inmates battle disease, thirst, and despair. Medical care is a luxury few receive, and forced labor, paying as little as pennies an hour, fuels a system critics call modern-day slavery. Charmaine lived in that world, until one moment shattered everything. She walked into the warden's office and froze. Andre, her man, was on his knees, and behind him stood Warden Lynn Mayfield. No warning, no escape. 2 lives destroyed before anyone could react. Before we go further, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Now ask yourself, was it love? Was it betrayal? Or did she uncover a truth buried by a system built to hide it? Who was this inmate? And why did her story end in bloodshed? Who exactly was her boyfriend? And how did a regular man from the outside find himself inside the prison walls more than some of the staff? And then, there's the warden. How did a woman trusted to keep law and order become part of a deadly triangle? Why did this love story end with 2 dead bodies on cold concrete? Who died first? And was it just heartbreak? Or was something else being covered up? Was this about forbidden love? Or did Charmaine Jones see something she was never meant to see? And if she hadn't walked into that office, at that exact moment, would any of this have happened? Before we go deeper, ask yourself, what would you do if the person you trusted the most was hiding a secret that could destroy everything? Charmaine Jones was 34 years old when she walked into the state correctional facility in Birmingham, Alabama. Her file said, aggravated assault. But her story was more than paperwork. She grew up fighting, not just people, but life itself. Raised by a mother who never stopped struggling, and a father who disappeared before her 2nd birthday. She became a mother of 2 before she was even ready to take care of herself. By the time she was arrested, she had already been broken a dozen times, but she still held on to one thing: Andre. Andre Brooks was 36, a warehouse supervisor who worked the night shift and showed up to visitation with tired eyes and a pressed shirt. He was her lifeline. Every other Saturday, like clockwork, he was there, photos tucked into his back pocket. Sometimes their kids, sometimes just a letter. He promised her a life after prison, a fresh start. She called him Dre. He called her Queen. They had a code. She'd tap twice on the visitation table before she left. He'd wink once. It meant, I'm still here. But something changed. Charmaine noticed it first. Dre started lingering after visits. Longer conversations with the guards. Less eye contact with her. More nerves. He became harder to reach by phone. The letters slowed down. The photos stopped. And then, the rumors. Inmates started whispering. Charmaine overheard her name once in the laundry room. One woman leaned close and said, "Your man ain't just yours anymore." Charmaine tried to brush it off, but it got harder when she saw Andre walk out of Warden Mayfield's office, alone. 15 minutes after visiting hours had ended, Warden Lynn Mayfield was 51, a lifer in the correction system. She ran her prison like a chessboard, everything in its place. Controlled, silent, dangerous. Staff didn't cross her. Inmates feared her. And visitors, they were invisible, until they weren't. She had a reputation, something the newer guards joked about, until they realized it wasn't a joke. Mayfield was known for keeping favorites, and when she set her eyes on someone, it was over. An inmate once said, she had power even over men who didn't work for her. If she wanted him, she got him. So what happens when a woman already serving time finds out that her only source of hope, the only person she trusts, the man who promised to wait for her, is now sleeping with the woman who controls every second of her life? And worse. What happens when she decides she's not going to stay quiet about it? It was August 12, 2023, Visitation Day at the Montgomery Women's Facility. Charmaine Jones had gone through the system dozens of times. She waited in line, showed her ID, and submitted to the standard metal detector scan and bag check. No electronics, no phones, as required. Up to 4 adult visitors allowed per session, and only after she'd been on the approved list for months. This time, only Andre was on that list. She signed in. The guard called her name and said almost offhand, "He's in the warden's office, filling paperwork." That was strange. Andre had never been invited into the warden's office during a visit, not in all her years behind bars. She walked toward the warden's wing with uncertainty. The corridor smelled faintly of disinfectant and institutional shampoo. Phones and contraband routinely sealed away long before. Guards stayed alert, scanning the hallway and monitoring every visitor move. Suddenly, from a half-open door, voices, too soft to make out. Curiosity won. She peeked in and froze. There was Andre, on his knees, and Warden Mayfield, powerful, untouchable, standing above him. Charmaine didn't scream. She didn't run. She turned and walked away, and something inside her broke. 40 minutes later, she returned to the visitation room. Silent, composed. It looked entirely routine. Then the alarms rang out. Warden Mayfield was found dead, strangled behind her desk, and Andre was found outside, reached for a kiss goodbye, stabbed in the neck in the parking lot. Car keys still in his hand. By the time surveillance footage was reviewed, by the time questions were asked, it was already over. Charmaine had confessed. No one saw it coming. But in a place built on routine and control, every quiet moment can carry a danger no one sees coming. After the bodies were discovered, the prison went into immediate lockdown. Standard protocol: no movement between units, no recreation, no visits, all inmates confined to their cells. Officers swept the grounds. Every hallway, every closet, even the visitor sign-in logs were pulled. Everyone inside the facility that day was accounted for. Charmaine Jones didn't say a word. Not when they led her away in cuffs. Not during intake at the segregation unit. Not for the next 2 days. She refused food, refused phone calls, just stared at the wall. Cold. Silent. Guards said she didn't even blink when they came for her clothes. But on the 3rd day, during a taped interrogation with the county detectives, she finally spoke. Her voice was flat, not angry, not tearful, just empty. "They were playing me," she said. "I gave up everything for that man, and they took turns laughing at me." That's when the real investigation began. Facility logs confirmed it. Andre Brooks had been granted longer than standard visitation sessions on at least 5 occasions. That's unusual. Alabama prisons enforce strict 2-hour limits, and only under rare administrative approval are those rules stretched. Staff interviews revealed more. A few officers admitted they'd seen Andre exit Warden Mayfield's office more than once, without escort. And according to internal memos, complaints had been filed by at least 2 inmates claiming inappropriate contact between Mayfield and male visitors. Both complaints were marked as closed, insufficient evidence. No follow-up. When detectives searched Charmaine's housing unit, they found the belt used in the warden's murder buried beneath a utility sink. Her fingerprints were all over it. Andre's blood was found on her state-issued sweatshirt. It had soaked through the hem. Then came the voice recording. A staff member leaked part of the interrogation footage. In it, Charmaine stares at the desk, not even facing the detective when she says, "He used to tell me, 'You're the only woman I see.' He lied." And she laughed. It wasn't just heartbreak. It wasn't just betrayal. It was humiliation. Inside a system where inmates are stripped of almost everything, time, identity, dignity, Charmaine believed Andre was the one thing she still had. And when that was gone, what was left? Just when everyone thought the case was clear-cut, A single piece of overlooked footage changed the entire direction of the investigation. It came from a blind spot in the prison's surveillance system, a hallway rarely used, mostly reserved for staff or authorized inmates on janitorial duty. No one paid much attention to it because the camera there didn't stream live. It only recorded locally, archived footage, no alerts, no automatic review. But someone, an analyst combing through over 60 hours of prison video, found it, and what they discovered unraveled everything. The footage begins at 5:13 p.m. Andre Brooks exits the warden's office. His shirt is untucked, his belt is halfway fastened. He pauses for a moment, glances over his shoulder, then adjusts himself, quietly. There's no panic in his walk, just a calm, controlled pace, like someone who's used to sneaking out of places they don't belong. Moments later, Warden Lynn Mayfield follows behind him. She's smiling, then laughing, genuinely, like she'd just heard something funny. She doesn't look like someone overseeing a correctional facility. She looks like someone who just got what she wanted. But then, something chilling happens. Charmaine steps into the hallway. She isn't supposed to be there either. She's walking fast, like she's looking for something, or someone. Then she stops, dead in her tracks. She locks eyes with the warden. Neither of them speaks, not a word. But you can feel the electricity in the silence, the heat, the disbelief, the betrayal. Andre is nowhere in sight now. Just two women standing on opposite ends of a hallway, both holding secrets, and both about to shatter. That moment, just 7 seconds long, was the last time either woman was seen alive. But that wasn't the only twist. During trial prep, defense attorneys accessed Andre's communications log, his prison email, monitored phone calls, and handwritten request forms. What they found told a different story. Andre hadn't just been messing around with the warden, he'd been trying to save Charmaine. For months, he'd been writing letters to nonprofits, contacting re-entry programs, and even petitioning for early release on her behalf under Alabama's supervised re-entry program. That's rare, especially for inmates like Charmaine, who had priors and very little institutional support. But suddenly, Warden Mayfield started vouching for her. She signed her name to 2 transfer requests. She pulled her out of solitary. She authorized longer visitation windows, things that don't happen unless someone very high up is making moves. Andre was the middleman, and when investigators dug deeper, they found the ugly truth behind it all. Warden Mayfield wasn't doing this out of compassion. She was doing it for control. According to one former staff member who testified anonymously, everyone knew if Mayfield took interest in your case, she wanted something in return. She didn't mentor inmates. She manipulated them. Andre had been caught in her web, and in exchange for his compliance, she promised to help Charmaine. But he never told her the cost. He kept the deal buried, thinking he could protect her. But secrets inside prison walls don't stay secret for long. Charmaine found out. Maybe she overheard something. Maybe another inmate saw the visits and told her. Or maybe she saw it in his eyes. Either way, what mattered is what she felt. She wasn't just betrayed as a woman. She was betrayed as a prisoner who had already given up everything, her family, her dignity, her time, for a man who told her, "You're the only woman I see." And now she knew. He had lied. He wasn't fighting for her freedom. He was trading her dignity for sex with the same woman who once denied her parole. Warden Mayfield had them both, and she played them like pieces on a board. Charmaine didn't just snap. She collapsed. This wasn't just rage. It was devastation, hopelessness. In the words of the prison counselor who'd worked with her for 6 years, she wasn't just mad. She was broken. She'd spent years surviving in a place designed to strip her of everything. And just when she thought she had someone in her corner, someone who saw her as more than an inmate, she realized she was just another pawn in their game. In prison, power isn't about rank. It's about access to information, to favors, to control. Charmaine lost all of it in a single moment, and sometimes it's not the guards or the rules or the years behind bars that destroy someone. It's hope, ripped away when it was finally starting to feel real. After weeks of headlines, speculation, and silence, Charmaine Brooks entered the courtroom wearing a standard orange jumpsuit and shackles around her ankles. Her face was calm, too calm for a woman facing life. The judge asked her to rise. Her voice didn't crack. "I plead guilty," she said, "to 2 counts of second-degree murder. No trial, no defense." The courtroom was stunned. Her sentence, 55 years, without the possibility of parole. It sounded like the end of the story. But inside Alabama's prison walls, and outside them, whispers started growing louder. Civil rights organizations, long concerned about reports of abuse at Julia Tutwiler Prison for Women, began to dig into Warden Lynn Mayfield's past. That's when the real story started unraveling. At least 3 former inmates, all men who'd done time at nearby men's facilities where Mayfield once worked, came forward. Their stories were eerily similar. They claimed they were coerced into sexual relationships with her, using the exact same tactics we now know she used with Andre. Privileges, early parole recommendations, extra food, longer calls, conjugal visits, all dangled like bait. The price? Silence, submission. Some said they filed grievances. Others said they were too scared or too ashamed. But the pattern was clear. Warden Mayfield was a predator hiding in plain sight. As the media spotlight returned, a class action lawsuit was filed, alleging years of misconduct, sexual coercion, and abuse of power by Mayfield during her career. Charmaine's case was suddenly no longer just about jealousy or rage. It became a symbol of systemic abuse, of a woman punished by the same system that had failed to protect her. Investigators began reviewing her prison communications and found a paper trail, emails, requests, even a denied grievance form where Charmaine had once tried to report an inappropriate relationship between Andre and the warden. It had been ignored. Then there was the footage, a surveillance gap conveniently blamed on maintenance issues that placed Andre and Warden Mayfield alone in an unmonitored hallway moments before their deaths. All of it painted a new picture, one of betrayal, manipulation, and a woman pushed past her breaking point. And while the courts had already closed her case, public opinion had just opened it back up. Now, pro bono lawyers are petitioning for a full re-examination of Charmaine's conviction, citing abuse of power, emotional duress, and institutional failure. Inside her cell, Charmaine doesn't speak to reporters. She doesn't appear in front of cameras. But every night, just before lights out, she sits by the small metal desk bolted to the wall and writes. Not legal briefs, not petitions, but letters, one after another, to her daughter. We don't know what they say, but we know what she's endured. They said she snapped, but maybe she finally woke up. And the real question isn't, was she right? The real question is, if it were you, lied to, used, and abandoned, would you have done the same? So now that you've seen it all, tell me, was Charmaine just another inmate who snapped, or a woman pushed far beyond the breaking point? Because behind those steel doors and cement walls, it's not just bars that hold people in. It's secrets, it's silence, it's systems built to break you slowly, until the only way out feels like violence. Charmaine's story isn't just about murder, it's about betrayal. Betrayal by a man she trusted, a system that used her, and a prison culture that thrives on fear, manipulation, and control. We talk a lot about justice, but in places like Julia Tutwiler Prison in Alabama, the word justice can feel like a joke. Guards who prey on vulnerable women, medical staff who turn their backs, inmates who stay quiet. Not because they don't care, but because they're just trying to survive the day. So here's the real question. If you were Charmaine, isolated, humiliated, coerced, and then betrayed by the 2 people you loved most, what would you have done? Would you have stayed silent? Would you have waited for help that never came? Or would you have taken matters into your own hands? That's why I want to hear from you. Go to the comments right now and tell me what you honestly think. Is Charmaine a cold-blooded killer? Or is she just the latest example of what happens when a woman is treated like she's nothing for too long? Be honest, be raw. No judgment here. I read every single comment, and I want to know what you felt watching this. And hey, if you're still watching at this point, you're not just passing time. You're invested. So type "still here" in the comments. That way I know who's really riding this story to the end with me. And listen, if this shook you, if it made you angry, sad, conflicted, then you're going to want to stick around. Because next week, we're diving into the story of a woman who served 12 years in prison for a crime her husband committed. She stayed loyal, silent, even protected him. But the day she got out, she found out he had married her sister. And what she did next, it didn't just make headlines, it changed her life and shook the entire prison system. So do this. Hit that subscribe button. Smash that like if this story got to you. And share this video with someone who thinks they've heard it all, because this one's unforgettable. Let's keep these stories alive, not for shock, but for change.